Now, I know none of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle will admit to being racist, and I don't think they are. But when you look at the rhetoric and you hear the talking points and look at the legislation that's put forward, what are we to say?
I want to remind the gentleman that you cannot engage in characterizing the other members' positions, engaging in personality characterizations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just very frustrating because it seems like the legislation itself engages in personalities when it refers to a group of people that is derogatory. So if the legislation is doing it, and we're using words on the other side of the aisle like invasion, as if it's an army coming to our country, is that not personalities?
What the shutdowns did, if there's any silver lining at all, is it opened a lot of eyes to the way our education establishment works, that it's really not about the kids. In a state like California, it's never about the kids.
Also, Dr. Malkus, the left will concede that the pandemic caused learning loss. However, the evidence suggests that learning loss is far worse than it should have been because the Democrat politicians and their teacher union allies kept schools closed far longer than what was necessary.
It may have been disrupted, yes, because we experienced a trauma that is unprecedented in world history. And that's a word that no one has used up until this point. Trauma. We're having a conversation behaving as if we're really concerned about learning loss, while my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to cut funding to Title I, to community schools, and to resources for our most vulnerable people, especially those who receive SNAP and TANF benefits. What are we talking about? We're not being honest about the full conversation here. And so if learning loss is something we really care about, and again, it's the wrong term, it's disrupted learning, we need to invest in our teachers, invest in our children, and invest in our schools and communities that have been historically neglected. It's very frustrating for me to sit here as a lifelong educator to listen to Republicans who do not have one former educator in their party on this committee talk about what we need to be doing in our schools and what we need to be doing when it comes to education. They supported the Trump tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans a few years ago and are now unwilling to even discuss making sure the wealthy among us contribute their fair share to the American economy and to education. They call themselves patriots. They call themselves patriots. They claim to love America. How can they love America when they are not investing in our most precious resource, which is our children? If you really love America, you want to see America grow and thrive for decades to come. The best way to do that is to make sure our children and families have everything they need. At the same time, they want to cut SNAP benefits. They want to cut $4 billion from Title I schools. These are the poorest, most vulnerable people. If we put them in desperate situations, they will turn to doing something that will harm their community, which is crime. Their budget also cuts hundreds of thousands of law enforcement officers. So now we don't have the resources to respond to our kids on the front end or the back end, and we're leaving our families to suffer.